Chapter 25 and 26 of The Grapes of Wrath are really where the plot picks up and so many of the themes and ideas really start to emerge. Although some of the clips in this short video are from previous chapters, it really helps illustrate the points that Steinbeck is making.
Here, among the families who had lost everything, been derided as lazy, dirty, the first stirrings of John Steinbeck's big book began to emerge.
We ain't no bums, Tom insisted. We're looking for work. We'll take any kind of work. The young man paused in fitting the brace to the valve slot. He looked in amazement at Tom. Looking for work, he said. So you were looking for work. What you think everybody else is looking for? Diamonds? What you think I wore my ass down to the nub looking for?
What you see the Jodes doing and what this book becomes is a sort of quest for one's humanity. And that humanity is equated to having some kind of substantial work. So what the Jodes are keep moving from place to place to place, looking for a chance to work, looking for a chance to be human.
Tom saw Uncle John and Pa and the preacher hoisting the tarpaulin on the tent poles, and Ma on her knees inside, brushing off the mattress on the ground. A circle of quiet children stood to watch the new family get settled. Quiet children with bare feet and dirty faces. Tom said, back home some fellas come through with handbills, orange ones. Says they need lots of people out here to work the crops. The young man laughed. They say they's 300,000 us folks here, and I bet every damn family's seen them handbills. Yeah, but if they don't need folks, what'd they go through the trouble of putting them things out for?
The American dream helps to keep a society contained. Because then an individual believes, like the Jodes, for example, in The Grapes of Wrath, that if I'm not prospering, if I'm not attaining these things, there's something that I'm not doing. It's not that the society is flawed or that the system is flawed or weighted. It's just that there is something wrong within me.
Look, the young man said, suppose you got a job at work, and there's just one fella wants the job. You got to pay him what he asks. But suppose there's 100 men. He put down his tool. His eyes hardened, and his voice sharpened. Suppose there's 100 men wants that job. Suppose them men got kids, and them kids is hungry. Suppose a lousy dime will buy a box of mush for them kids. Suppose a nickel will buy at least something for them kids. And you got 100 men. Just offer them a nickel. Why, they'll kill each other fighting for that nickel. Tom said, that's stinking. The young man laughed harshly. You stay out here a little while, and if you smell any roses, you come let me smell too.
So, the book The Grapes of Wrath grew out of a series of newspaper articles on the California migrant workers entitled The Harvest Gypsies that Steinbeck published in the San Francisco News. This was illustrated with photographs by Dorothea Lange in October 1936. Writing at the height of the Depression, Steinbeck was on fire with his subject. Like some of the greatest novels in the series, the book was written in a white heat. He said, I want to put a tag of shame on the greedy bastards who are responsible for the Great Depression. The novel, 200,000 words on 165 cramped handwritten pages in a 12-inch by 18-inch lined ledger book, was completed in 5 months at the rate of 2,000 words a day. Never worked so hard in my life nor so long before, he told a friend. It was, says Steinbeck, his ambition to rip a reader's nerves to rags from page to page. To achieve added drama and tempo, he borrowed the jump cut technique of Dos Passos USA trilogy. At his wife Carol's suggestion, he took his title from the Battle Hymn of the Republic by Julia Ward Howe. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. So The Grapes of Wrath, the title of the book, shows up in the last sentence of chapter 25. And we're going to listen to a couple of minutes of that song right now and think about, as you listen to the song, what is happening in the song, and why did Steinbeck choose this song for his title? So it's so interesting that Steinbeck took the title of his novel from a Civil War battle song that has references and strong religious symbolism. So another bit of very symbolic representation in The Grapes of Wrath is the character of Jim Casey. He's the former preacher who has become unsure of his belief. He's picked up by the Joads along their way to California, and he appears to be very tolerant, and he believes in humanity and in man's natural goodness. Thus, he tells Tom of his opinion that there ain't no sin and there ain't no virtue. There's just stuff people do. It's all part of the same thing, and some of the things folks do is nice and some ain't nice, but that's as far as any man got a right to say. He said that back in chapter 4. He's a Christ-like figure. First of all, his initials are the same as Jesus Christ. And what's more, like Christ, Casey also went into the wilderness for intense prayer before returning to society. He withdraws himself for 4 years from the public in order to develop his religious beliefs and his commitment to humanity. Like Christ, Casey also becomes a herald of a new consciousness, bringing also through his commitment to humanity and his sacrifice a promise of a new beginning. So it's not surprising that Casey also sacrifices himself for the Joads. In order to save Tom Joad, Casey takes the blame for Tom hitting a guard in Hooverville. As Casey is carried away by the police, he feels proud of his sacrifice, knowing that it will have a great impact on Tom's life. Hence, on Casey's lips, there was a faint smile, and on his face, a curious look of conquest in chapter 20. Later, Casey is clubbed to death, and like Christ, he forgives his murderer by saying, "You don't know what you're doing." This clearly alludes to Christ's statement to God when he was crucified. When Jesus Christ was on the cross, he said, "God, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Christ also asked God to forgive his murderers because they didn't know what they were doing. This is a very powerful act of forgiveness, and it enables Casey to triumph over his murderers. So if you think about Jim Casey, he was trying to lead a group, trying to lead men to revolt against the status quo, right? To become a leader. So thinking about Casey, I want you to listen to this performance of this monologue. This is when Jim Casey was praying over dinner back earlier, much earlier in the book. But listen to this prayer that Jim Casey offers before dinner.
Freddie Robinson, Jim Casey, The Grapes of Wrath. I've been thinking. I've been in the hills thinking. Almost, you might say, like Jesus went to the wilderness to think his way out of a mess of troubles. I ain't saying I'm like Jesus, but I got tired like him, and I got mixed up like him. And I went to the wilderness like him without no camping stuff. And then I got thinking, only it wasn't thinking. It was deeper than thinking. I got thinking how there was a moon and the stars and the hills. And there was me looking at them. And we wasn't separate no more. We was one thing. And that one thing was holy. I got thinking how we was holy when we was one thing, and mankind was holy when it was one thing. And it only got unholy when one miserable little fella got the bit in his teeth and run off his own way, kicking and dragging and fighting. Fella like that bust the holiness. But when they all working together, kind of harnessed to the whole shebang, that's right. That's holy. And then I got thinking, I don't even know what I mean by holy. I can't say no grace like I used to say. I'm glad of the holiness of supper. I'm glad there's love here. That's all. I done got your supper cold. Amen. Thank you.
So as you think about Jim Casey as a character and about the ideas that Steinbeck is presenting in this book, think about what Casey was saying about the holiness, right? And about people working together, and about Jim Casey trying to unionize the men to fight back, to revolt, and for the family to stay together and to work together. So a little bit more from Steinbeck. He told his literary agent that he liked the title because it's a march. And this book is kind of a march because it's our own revolutionary tradition. In 1938, Steinbeck reported he was so dizzy he could hardly see the page. He scrawled "end" in large letters on the manuscript and then wrote in his journal, "Finished this day, and I hope to God it's good." The first reaction of Steinbeck's agent and editor were excited. The Grapes of Wrath was rushed into print, going from typescript to page proof in just 4 months, and published on the 14th of April in 1939. The novel at once became a national sensation, probably the most reviewed and publicized, and even the most controversial American novel of the 20th century, discussed on the radio, denounced by angry readers, and even banned in some libraries. The Associated Farmers of California were particularly incensed, complaining about a pack of lies and Jewish propaganda, though Steinbeck was not Jewish. A certain Ruth Comfort Mitchell attempted to refute the novel in a vindication of California's treatment of its immigrant workers in a now forgotten book entitled Of Human Kindness. Joining battle from the other side, both Pearl Buck, author of The Good Earth, and the First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, who said she never thought the novel was exaggerated, supported Steinbeck, as did the U.S. Senate, which judged that, if anything, the novelist had underestimated the violation of human rights on the West Coast. So this week, what I would like you to do is in Flipgrid, pick one of these questions, or you can pick more than one, but at least one of these questions to discuss and answer. So question number 1, about the title of the book, right? Listen to the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and then discuss how that title connects to the song, how the title of the book connects to the song. What do you think Steinbeck was trying to say with the title of the book? Don't worry about looking up and trying to find someone else's answers. Just speak from your heart. What do you think is the connection? What do you think Steinbeck's saying? Or you could talk about Jim Casey and the fact that in chapter 26, Jim Casey tries to unionize the workers at the peach farm. Why? Why was this happening? What was happening? The Joad family they crossed the picket line in order to get those jobs. But then what happened to wages? Why are unions so important? Why were they important then? Why was it something Jim Casey was starting to do? And why are they important now? Or finally, you could answer question number 3. You can talk about Jim Casey and Jesus Christ, right? How are they similar? What kinds of things are they fighting for? How did they sacrifice their lives? And why did they sacrifice their lives? So pick one of these questions and record your response on Flipgrid. And then you can return back to the week 4 English 3 online to finish reading the book for the end of the week. Thanks. See you again soon.